I am Jack Red. Sorry that that was a little unexpected, but I decided to do E.T. Yeah, a lot of you guys consider this the worst video game ever made. A lot of us can agree that this is definitely the worst game by Atari, and I'm not gonna lie to you, I have played it, and I do know how bad it is. I've seen videos on it. I've been hearing shit about it. You know, I think it's time you hear what I gotta say about it. Okay, first off, I seen the movie when I was a kid. I didn't really like it too much back then, but I knew it was a good movie when I saw it, and finding out a couple years later that this game actually exists makes you want to vomit. I mean, sure, Game Thrower is the only game on the top 10 best and worst games for the worst section. The top just was Superman 64. But there's reasons for that. I mean, for E.T., first off, what's up with the arrows? The arrows are like, okay. I mean, they make no sense. And the second off, the graphics could have been a little more decent for Atari 2600 game. I mean, look at Raiders of the Lost Ark. I mean, that did better, even though it's a little complicated for an Atari game. But that did better, and that's what I got appreciate. On the good side of this, the whole thing is that at least the title screen looks decent to look at, and at least if there's this video permanent that it does follow the movie, so at least you can't complain about that. However, what you can complain about is those goddamn pits. You fall down them and you're trying to get up, and if you, by having to screw up, you go back down the pits. I'm like, okay. And the only thing more frustrating than that in video game history is going to those rings in Superman 64. I am dead serious. They're more annoying than the pits. And you know what else? You can't die in this game. Well, unless, of course, you run out of these points. You start at 9,999. And if they run out, guess what? This kid brings you back and you got like 1,000 and some hundred. I'm like, why couldn't you give me the whole life back, you son of a bitch? You know? So, you know. I had to say, most of all, that for such a game, I can't even believe something this bad actually exists. I'm sorry to say this, but I wouldn't even play Custer's Revenge, Pac-Man on the same console either. They suck. They actually do suck. You know what? I was going to originally make this just on E.T., but you know what? I'm going to change my mind and put it on the other two Atari games that made the list. Okay, let's go to Custer's Revenge. That game was horrible. You rape an Indian woman, and the arrows make no sense either. I mean, it's like, okay, hold on, let me see. Okay, it's like, and then it starts over, and it just has a random way how it works. And the fact that the levels basically all look the same doesn't really help. I mean, the whole object is basically ripping the Indian girl, avoiding arrows, and you know, it's just bull crap. Going through that shit. I mean, what do you think? It's the third worst game by Game Thrower. It just sucks. It just sucks. I mean, there's nothing about it that's good. And you know what's right across that on the best? Okay, when they brought up Street Fighter 2, they actually named a specific version of Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 2 Hyper Fighting. Which is a pretty decent title, by the way. If I remember correctly, that was the last version of Street Fighter 2 to have the bonus games, such as beat up the car until it's destroyed and beat up the barrel. So now I'm going to get off of that, and I'm going to Pac-Man. I'm a fan of Pac-Man. I admit it. I like the arcade game. I like playing it on the computer. I played it on the Sega Genesis and on a lot of consoles. I mean, I played Mrs. Pac-Man. I played a lot of Pac-Man games in my life, but this version of Pac-Man that people really do hate, I understand. First off, Pac-Man's supposed to be like this, right? It's like this. Oh, look at this, the ghosts are supposed to be like you, but yeah, they're like, yeah, it makes no sense. And most of all, they could have at least making it look a little darker, the game, while making it too bright and awful. I mean, the game looks like, okay, we like Pac-Man, and we're going to make him into a game, but we can't use black. What can we use as a good substitute? And basically they shit over the idea. And you know, and Atari was basically, two of their games E.T. and Pac-Man were the main reasons why the crash in a video game crash in 1983 happened. Even though Super Mario Bros. Came and saved the day, probably 2 years later, and is still one of the most preferred games of all time. It is the most downloaded game on the Virtual Console, the most sold game of all time. I mean, people love this game. I mean, it was like the savior of all kinds of video games. I mean, without this game, these two son of a bitches would end gaming permanently. We would have never had games again. Sure, we would have had to play board games and watch movies and do a lot more, but the point is, the reason why we have video games is sometimes we need to get our anger out, sometimes we want to have flat out fun, and sometimes we can't get that. So I'm going to end this just how I want it to, that stay away from these 3 Atari 2600 games. You're going to regret it if you don't play them. I'm sorry, if you do play them, but you're going to regret it if you do play them, because they are really bad. I mean, they're so bad they make you want to rip your hair off, make you want to punch yourself in the nuts. They even want to make you wish that you can blindfold yourself and hoping that someone would crush your eyes in. So, see ya.